stop this from happening? How can I make sure that this doesn't happen to me or other artists ever again?
Like, one thing you did do is you removed all your art from social media.
Yeah.
How come? Why?
It was all I could do. I was very frustrated. I don't have a solution in my mind right now, but I'm not going to allow the problem to continue while I figure out the solution. So yeah, I even deleted my Twitter account completely. And then after a while, I went back through a lot of my art, made sure my signature was embedded before I shared it again. So there are still days where I want to go into my social media and delete everything.
When you're creating something like this, what emotions are going through as you're sitting there and coming up with this design?
Yeah, it's a since 2018. According to its database, 119 such incidents have taken place since then. The organization tracks shootings where a firearm was discharged and where any person other than the suspect has a bullet wound resulting from the incident. Now, it doesn't track cases in which the only shots fired were from a school resource officer or a police officer. The school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, get this, marks the 27th school shooting this year in the United States. Is it any wonder why school conduct active shooter drills? Now, practicing in the school
27 shootings at the school.
1999 shooting in Columbine High School in Colorado, and rapidly expanding as high-profile attacks took place in recent years. The portion of public schools conducting these drills grew from 40% in 2007 in the United States to 95% by 2017, as most states now require them. They become one of the most common school safety measures, despite widespread fears that the procedure heightens anxiety. And there's evidence of school shooters like the one in Parkland, Florida, who use the knowledge of the drills to their advantage. It's not just American schools, remember. Canadian schools also conduct these very drills. In America, they call them active shooter drills. In Canada, we call them lockdown drills. The meaning is the same. Joining me now to discuss the mass shootings and the impact on Canadian students is Stephen Price. Mr. Price is an elementary school teacher in West Vancouver. Stephen, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So when you heard of this latest shooting in Texas, what went through your mind as a parent and as an educator?
Well, every time one of these events comes up, you can't help but feel a piece of the tragedy the parents in Uvalde will have felt, and the teachers at that school. I teach grade 4 and 5, and so the kids are the same age. When I think of the faces in my classroom, and I think of what those kids at Ross Elementary had to go through, I can't help but see my own classroom in that scenario, and it's really hard.
Yeah, I think a lot of Canadians felt that way. There's shock, there's anger, there's frustration. As an educator, it's the first time you've had to deal with something like this. What do you tell children who are going to see these images, hear these stories, read about what's occurred? A lot of it is being out not just on media TV networks, but on social media, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook. What would you be telling kids in school when they see these images, when they hear about what's transpired? What do you tell kids?
Each teacher is going to approach that in a different way. It really comes down to your classroom and the age of your kids. So as a grade 4 or 5 teacher, my kids are coming into that awareness of things that are going on in the world, and you can try to kind of keep it away. And with U.S. news, particularly as a Canadian teacher, I don't always address U.S. politics or U.S. Stories in my classroom unless it's in the water, unless the kids are asking questions. And so when the conversation opens up, though, you give the kids a chance to express their feelings, to ask their questions, and my goal is always to sort of show them that that one, there's not good answers, and the adults don't necessarily have good answers here either. Two, that I'm there as their teacher, that the adults there in their school or their homes are there to do everything in their power to keep them safe at school. And three, that it's okay to talk about it, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be worried, and we address those worries as we go through our day, and but we carry on and we build community around both the positive that happens in our schools, and we also build community when we have hard stories like this one come into our classrooms.
In the United States, they call the active shooter drills. In fact, 95% of public schools in the United States now have these drills. In Canada, we call them lockdown drills. But they're the same thing. What do you do when there may be somebody entering your school, potentially with a weapon, wanting to do harm? Have you as an educator taken part in these active lockdown drills?
Yeah, in my area in British Columbia, it's typically once a year. Very often we'll have local police come in and do the drill with us. So how it looks is it's typically scheduled, but teachers know ahead of time, and students may or may not know ahead of time, depending on the age of the kid. So we'll have the drill. My students will know to go and find a hiding place in the classroom. So we kind of talk about that, and they've done this now. By the time they hit me, they've actually done it since kindergarten. So it's not new to them. And so then we'll hide. All the lights go off. My job is to lock the classroom door, and then turn the lights off and find a spot to hide. What happens next is that if the police are assisting us, then the police will actually come and check each door, and I actually don't even answer the door when they knock. They knock, and I wait for them to unlock the door. Somebody with a key comes and unlocks the door for to get access to the room, and then the hard part of the drill happens. Every time I have that drill in my classroom, my goal is to make meaning of it with the students. My goal is to help them understand. And so I open the floor to questions. I say, okay, so we've had this drill. What are your questions? And those are hard days. Those are actually my least favorite days of every school year is the lockdown drill day. Because you have to go to that.
What questions do they ask? I'm curious.
Well, so their questions are often, like, is this going to happen? Is a really hard question, right? Why would somebody want to come into the school and hurt kids? What will you do, Mr. Price, if somebody's trying to get here? What do we do? Do we fight back? All of these questions are really good questions, and they're exactly the kind of questions that you want your kids asking, in a sense, in that situation. But it's hard. We have to walk them carefully through the two things. One being able to know what to do if that horrible outcome ever happens in your school, but also be able to kind of carry that emotion with them home. And so I always like to reach out to parents as well and just remind them, like, that's a really good dinner table conversation to have that night, to just sort of debrief with their kids any concerns that they might have that they weren't willing to share in the community of the classroom.
You're listening to the Roy Reed Show. My guest is Stephen Price. Back after the break.
Here's what's new at 630ched.com.
630ched is giving you the opportunity to run away to the circus. Enter at 630ched.com for your chance to win a VIP package to the Royal Canadian Circus. The Royal Canadian Circus will be rolling into town June 9th through 19th.
Get your name on our insider list today and keep up to date on pre-sales, contests, and more. Visit 630ched.com. You're a smart person, but even smart people make dumb decisions. Not having a will? Dumb. DIY wills? The D stands for dumb. Make a free dumb decision with freedomlaw.ca.
The Verhage Law Team at freedomlaw.ca offer customized legal solutions like wills from just $600 and bundling with things like power of attorney and personal directives to save money. So smart.
Make the smart decision to protect you and your loved ones with freedomlaw.ca.
With mobile stations in the same parking lot where you get your protein, pasta, and produce, aka for the groceries, filling the tank when you fill the trunk is more convenient than... If there's something more convenient than filling up at a mobile station located less than 100 meters from the grocery store where you earn PC Optimum points, it hasn't been invented. Yeah. Fuel efficiently. Mobile.
So dark and mysterious. What are they finding back there anyway? We sure would like to know what's going on with your four-wheel baby. Sure would love to shine the light on this situation. So looking for a free video inspection of exactly what's happening with your vehicle. Transparency, education, and value. Full time Monday to Friday for your free video inspection with service. Mystery solved.
Why exactly does it smell like a rat's nest in the basement?
It's man-like, man cave stuff.
Yeah, not for sure about that. Something's up.
Odors in your basement can be a foundation failure. If your basement smells funny or your carpets or floor are wet, call Shield Foundation Repair today. Ask about their mold and asbestos inspection and lab tests included with every Shield Foundation repair. Don't wait for it to get criminal. Protect Call Shield at 780-720-4900 or go to shieldfoundationrepair.ca. I'm Craig Hummel with Remax Excellence. If you're an owner of a commercial property looking to sell, a tenant looking to lease, or an investor looking to purchase, partner with the professionals at soldtodayedmonton.ca.
Relocate your business to Spruce Grove. 2 bays are available in Spruce Village, where average family income is over $120,000. It's ideal for your next location.
We understand commercial real estate. 780-504-2379. soldtodayedmonton.ca.
Goodbye snowblower. Hello bikes. Sentinel Storage has flexible and affordable storage solutions to create the space you need, whatever the season. Try 4 weeks free at a store near you. Visit sentinelstorage.ca for details. Shop Canadian, store Canadian.
And holding spinners to account. Always. You're listening to The Roy Green Show.
Welcome back to the Roy Green Show. I'm Jan also for Mr. Green. Our guest is Stephen Price. We've been talking about the events that have transpired in Texas, and we're all looking for answers in regards to the impact that this has, not only on families, but what impact it has on our kids in our classrooms. Sometimes I think what we're easy to say that America, they have a gun issue, they have societal challenges. There are broader conversations about the Second Amendment, which we've covered on the show. Canadian context, is it safe for us to say that is America's problem? Not a Canadian problem that we should not.
I think, we definitely have less worry here in Canada than we do in the States. The number of times that we've had shooters in schools is vanishingly small. If I recall correctly, it's 100 times fewer per capita than the U.S., but I might be getting that stat wrong. The important thing, though, is that it is not zero. We haven't had zero school shootings in Canada, and so we are next to the States. In the case of the Nova Scotia shooter, which was a school shooter, the guns came from the U.S. So with our neighbor choosing a different path than Canada has on gun control, it is still something that parents like myself or teachers at schools have to plan for. In the unlikely event, we're fortunate that we are farther away from that possibility in a school in Canada than you would be in a school in the United States.
What should parents be telling their kids?
what does he know? How much has he been absorbing? In my case, I've kind of been taking the approach of keeping it away from him. But it's now been enough days since the event that he probably heard of it at school. So this weekend our plan is to check in with him and sort of just say, hey, what are the kids been saying at school? Do you have any questions? And, probably have, just kind of sit in the shadows for a second, and let him talk.
In regards to elected officials, is there more that needs to be done from elected officials? Any rules, regulations, and laws that should be brought forward for the candidates will receive them?
It's another hard question. I mean, one of the things that I think about as a teacher with active shooters is that there were 18 years, not half an hour or a day or a week that led to that active shooting event in Texas. There were 13 teachers that could have maybe made a difference. And so I think of each of these cases, not to diminish the evil or the criminality of the active shooter, but I think of those as failures of systems. As a teacher, I'm always looking out for kids at risk. Who needs my helping hand in a classroom this year? And one of the big challenges we have in our system is that we don't have enough of us to go around. There aren't enough counselors in schools, so that when I see a student who's at risk and needs somebody to kind of take their hand and steer them away from a path that I'm worried about, that we have the resources to do that we're not stretched too thin. So if I was to have any wish, it's not about gun control so much or about hardening schools. It's actually about making sure that we have the social systems in place, that we don't see people deciding that the best next step for their life is to go to a gun store and buy a gun and kill children.
And in many ways, one could argue, and it's early days of this event in Texas, and there'll be more facts coming out. But one could argue that if there had been more resources, perhaps teachers recognizing a vulnerable student, in this case, the shooter here, perhaps something could have done, potentially something could have been done.
Yeah, I don't think, that human nature is what it is, and there are folks who you aren't going to stop. But I don't think that's the great majority of these cases. I think in the great majority of these cases, different paths were possible at various times. And yeah, if we have the resources, if we have a bit of that extra capacity to take that time out with those students, when they're young, when they're still choosing a path, that's really important.
Stephen, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
That was Stephen Price. He's a teacher and education columnist, and he teaches at the West Vancouver School District in British Columbia. The numbers are just striking. Prior to our interview, I gave you a couple of data points here. According to Education Week, there have been 119 school shootings since they first started tracking them in 2018. This year, in the United States, we've had 27 school shootings in 2022 alone. And don't think for a moment that Uvalde School District didn't have school shooting or didn't have lockdown drills for school shootings. They did. Law enforcement officers from 5 agencies participated. And this is where we've ended up. The Chicago Public School System developed a 15-page guide called The Day After to help teachers and staff coach students through processing painful events. This is where we have gotten to, folks. Our kids
sad.
in school where they should
School
be safe,
shooting
where they
is
should
very
be
sad.
safe. Instead,
Що
they're doing
за
lockdown drills. They're participating
дітко
in active shooter drills.
лютий
Those names alone.
буде
It's a sad day.
стріляти до дітей?